He frightens us with poverty. He makes us fear that if we do not do certain things, we will become poor. He whispers, if you do not allow music in your restaurant, if you do not place a woman at the reception desk, or if you do not have a woman handling customer calls, then your business will not survive. You will fail. You will become poor. This is exactly what Shaytan does. He threatens people with poverty and commands them toward evil and indecency. And what does this promise of poverty really mean? It is this fear. If you do not do these things, you will have no livelihood. If you refuse to sell alcohol in your restaurant, or if you leave an interest-based job, then you will never find another job. In this way, he makes a person forget that his Lord is Ar-Razzaq, the one who provides. He fills a person with anxiety. He increases restlessness. He makes the heart more worried and more disturbed. He makes a person say, if I leave this work, then I will have no income. I will have no provision. But what has Allah promised? Whoever has taqwa of Allah, Allah will make a way out for him. Allah will create paths for him. Allah will provide for him from places he could never have imagined. And even if a person escapes these traps, subhanallah, if he is righteous, if he is avoiding minor sins, major sins, innovations and forms of disbelief and shirk, still Iblis will not be satisfied. He will say, at least I will not let him reach the highest levels of Jannah, al-Firdaus, al-Ala. Let me waste his time, so he changes his approach. He says, watch videos, watch documentaries, play PUBG, play Fortnite, get absorbed in gaming. Why? So that this person's time is wasted and he cannot perform righteous deeds. Keep scrolling on Facebook all day. Keep watching random accident videos on YouTube, crazy clips, survival videos, random biking videos. Spend the entire day in these things. These things are not necessarily haram in every case, and a person may do them from time to time, but Shaytan wants to waste his time so that he cannot do good deeds. And if a person escapes even that trap, and he still has love for good deeds and remains dedicated, then Iblis comes from yet another direction. He starts suggesting good deeds to him. He says, do good deeds, do this, do that. But he does not guide him to the greater deeds. He does not direct him toward the highest and most beneficial actions. Instead, he keeps him busy with smaller good deeds so that he cannot rise to greater ones, so that he cannot achieve higher levels, and so that he may enter a lower rank of Jannah. Look at how evil and how terrible an enemy he is. He wants to drag everyone into hell somehow. And if someone is still heading toward Jannah, even though Shaytan hates that, he still wants to reduce that person's rank and reward. Shaytan is very patient. He moves slowly, step by step. He may say, that woman appreciates you so much. She is so polite with you. She says mashallah and tabarakallah. She remembers Allah so much. She is pious and righteous. Speaking to her will benefit your deen. It will strengthen your faith. Or he may say the same in the opposite direction. But in reality, they are non-mahram. This is the angle from which he approaches. This is how he enters. Slowly and gradually, attachment begins to develop. Feelings begin to grow, emotions begin to form, and eventually this can lead to adultery and zina. We have already discussed this in detail in many lectures about temptations, desires, and similar matters. Then look at the generations after Nuh alayhi salam. For 10 generations, Tawheed remained firm. After that, how did shirk enter? It is mentioned in Hadith that Iblis told those generations, your elders are dying. They were righteous people, and you are not as righteous as they were. So what should you do? Make images of them, so that when you look at them, you remember Allah. No, do not worship them. You would never commit shirk. Just make their images, so that when you see them, you remember how righteous they were, and through them you remember your Lord. They were people who busied themselves with prayer, recitation, worship, helping others, serving their parents, and maintaining noble character. So people thought, When we look at them, we will remember Allah. Then gradually those images turned into statues. People said, "These are not proper enough. Let us make sculptures of them so that we can remember them more clearly." They still said, "We would never commit shirk. We cannot even imagine that." Then slowly, later generations saw their elders standing before these figures, weeping near them and making dua. They began saying, "We do not know whether Allah is pleased with our dark deeds or not, but He was pleased with them. So let us ask them to pray to Allah for us, so that our prayers may be accepted." In this way, it developed further. Then eventually people started believing that Allah had given these figures responsibilities, that one was in charge of rain, one of provision, one of this matter, one of that matter. And little by little, idols such as Lat, Manat, and Uzza came into existence. This is how Shaytan plays with generations, one after another. He does not always misguide people in one move. He leads them astray gradually. You know the story of Barsisa. It is a long story, but I will mention it briefly. 2 men were going away, and they had a sister whom they needed to leave behind. Barsisa was known as a pious man, a worshipper, someone famous for devotion, so they asked him, "Please take care of our sister." He immediately refused. He said, "No, are you insane? I seek Allah's refuge from this. Leave from here. You are like devils to me, asking me to take responsibility for a woman." So they left. Then Shaytan came to whisper to him, "If you do not take care of her, then some sinful and wicked man may take care of her instead, and he may harm her. How terrible would that be? Better that you look after her yourself, but with strict boundaries." So Barsisa accepted. He said, "Fine, I will look after her, but she will stay in her home, and I will stay in mine, in my place of worship. I will leave food outside the door, and she can come and take it herself." For some time this arrangement continued. Then Shaytan came again and whispered, "This is not good. You are a man, and she is a woman. You are making her come outside to collect food. Some man may see her, harass her, or trouble her. Better that you place the food closer so that she does not have to step outside so much." Barsisa thought, "Yes, that makes sense." So he brought the food nearer. Then Shaytan whispered again, "Food left outside can become dirty. It can be spoiled. She still has to come out to collect it, and someone may see her and cast an evil glance upon her. Better that you place the food just inside the doorway." Again Barsisa thought, "Yes, that sounds reasonable." So he began placing the food inside. Then, after some months, Shaytan returned and said, "So much time has passed, and you have not even greeted her. You have not spoken to her once. How do you know whether she is well or sick? She has no one there to ask about her condition. You are like a guardian in place of her father. At least ask how she is." So Barsisa began speaking to her from outside the door. Then Shaytan came again and whispered, "What will people think? They may assume that you are standing outside sharing private words with her. You are sincere and you mean no wrong, but people may misunderstand and suspect flirtation. It is better to speak from inside so that people do not make bad assumptions." So he began speaking from inside the doorway. Then slowly and gradually attachment developed. Feelings grew, emotions deepened. Eventually, they committed fornication and a child was born. Then the time came for the brothers to return. Shaytan came once more and said, "What have you done? You committed fornication, and now there is a child. When her brothers return, they will ask whose child this is. You will be disgraced in the whole community. They may even kill you." Barsisa panicked and asked, "Then what should I do?" Shaytan said, "Kill them." So he killed the woman, and he killed the child, and buried them both. When the brothers returned and asked about their sister, Barsisa said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." She became ill and passed away. They accepted that for the moment. Then Shaytan came into the dreams of all 3 brothers and told them where their sister had been buried. One brother said, "I saw a dream." The second said, "I saw the same." The third said the same as well. So they decided to investigate. They dug at that place and found their sister and the child buried there. Barsisa was then seized and brought before the ruler for punishment. And when the time for his execution came, Shaytan appeared to him in physical form and said, "I am Iblis. I am Shaytan. All those whispers came from me. I am the one who trapped you. I am the one who brought you to this point. And now I am the only one who can save you." Barsisa in despair said, "Save me. What must I do?" Shaytan said, "Just prostrate to me. Bow your head before me, and I will rescue you." So Barsisa lowered himself and prostrated. And then Shaytan abandoned him. This is how Shaytan comes. Sometimes he does not come with open evil in the beginning. He comes through what appears to be concern, wisdom, sincerity, protection, or even goodness. And what are Shaytan's specific goals? He frightens us with poverty. He says, "You will become poor if you do not allow music in your restaurant. If you do not place a woman at the reception desk, if you do not have a woman dealing with your business calls, your work will not run. You will fail." The Qur'an tells us clearly that Shaytan threatens you with poverty and commands you toward indecency and evil. And what is this threat of poverty? It is that same fear. If you do not do this, if you refuse to sell alcohol in your restaurant, if you leave your interest-based job, then you will never find another job. This is how he makes a person forget that his Lord is Ar-Razzaq. He fills the person with anxiety and inner unrest. He makes him worry more and more, saying, "If I leave this work, then I will have no sustenance." But Allah is Ar-Razzaq. He is the provider. Your provision is not in the hands of people. Your sustenance is with the one in the heavens. How strange it is that people wake up for their jobs, but not for Fajr. They get up in the morning for their livelihood, but they do not rise for the one who created and controls that livelihood. Shaytan is the one who frightens people and says, "If you do not lie, you will not earn. If you do not work in interest-based systems, you will not survive. If you do not put music in the restaurant, if you do not use women's pictures in your marketing, if you do not use women in your advertising to sell your products, then no one will buy from you. No one will be attracted. How else will your business run?" Subhanallah, these are the traps of Shaytan. And what is Allah's promise? Whoever has taqwa of Allah, Allah will make a way out for him. He will open paths for him. He will provide for him from places he never imagined. The scholars say that Allah promises forgiveness and bounty. Allah knows all things, and his knowledge is vast. Allah promises forgiveness and grace, while Shaytan promises poverty and commands evil. And if a person escapes even this, Allahu Akbar, if he is righteous, if he avoids small sins, major sins, innovations, shirk and disbelief, still Iblis is not satisfied. He says, "At least I will stop him from reaching the highest level of Jannah al-Firdaus al-Ala. I will waste his time. Watch videos, watch documentaries, play PUBG, play Fortnite, get lost in gaming." Why? So that the person cannot perform righteous deeds. Scroll on Facebook all day. Watch random accident clips on YouTube, strange survival videos, random biking videos. Spend your whole day doing that. These things may not always be haram in themselves. A person may do some of them occasionally, but Shaytan wants to waste the servant's time so that he cannot do good deeds. And if the person escapes this trap too, and still has a strong desire for righteousness and remains committed, then Iblis changes his strategy once again. He starts recommending good deeds. He says, "Do these acts, do those acts," but he does not guide him to the greatest deeds. Instead, he keeps him occupied with smaller actions so that he misses the greater ones. In this way, he limits him to a lower rank in paradise. What a wicked and hateful enemy he is. He wants to drag everyone into hell, and even if someone is still going toward Jannah, something he cannot stand, he still wants to reduce that person's reward. Shaytan is extremely patient. He comes slowly, step by step. That is how Shaytan operates.